Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've been waiting for is finally here. Starfield just released its first planetary vehicle. The REV-8 is a dune buggy-esque vehicle that you can drive all over every planet. I've been playing around with it all night and I have some thoughts. And even more importantly, I have 6 tips to help you make the most out of your new toy in Starfield. Hey everybody, I'm Dylan. Welcome to Beep Boop Loot, where my goal is to help casual gamers make the most of their game time. So, starting off with the most important question, is the Starfield REV-8 fun? Yes, it actually is super fun, and I've been having a blast playing with it. But I do have a couple issues with it that we'll talk about today, and this update also makes me think about what the future has in store for Starfield. To get the REV-8, you just need to go to any of the ship technicians in the game. I went to the spaceport at Jemison, and then you pay 25,000 credits. This will immediately unlock the REV-8, and you will now have a new customization menu where you can change the colors of the REV-8. This brings me to my first Starfield future thought. The REV-8 menu has a 1 out of 1 at the top. What does that mean? It seems odd to include that if there weren't plans for more vehicles, right? Maybe I'm overthinking this one, but I do think that 1 out of 1 suggests there might be more vehicles coming, or at least different types of buggies, and I start to think about the possibilities there, and that's pretty cool. What do you think? Overall, I will say I'm a little underwhelmed by the customization, given that it's just color changes, but I'm glad it's included at all so you can customize slightly. Hopefully they start to build this out like ships at some point. How fun would it be to Lego your way into a dune buggy, put all these parts together, and just rip around in this ridiculous vehicle? I think that'd be awesome. So immediately after choosing my colors, I dropped onto a planet and got to driving. My first thought was, this handles great. The steering's responsive, and the physics on the buggy feel awesome. The buggy handles almost identically to a Warthog in Halo, and it's surprisingly smooth to control. It comes equipped with a vertical and horizontal boost, which is pretty key, and we'll get to that in a second, and an on-vehicle mounted weapon, so it's really locked and loaded. Like any 12-year-old boy trapped in an adult body, I immediately started messing around with the boosts and flying all over the map. You can really rip around on planets, though this did make me realize a couple of things. 1, the collisions don't feel great on really rocky and uneven planets. Maybe I'm just a bad driver, but that did get a little annoying. And number 2, the tree physics are very weird. You sort of collide with them and then slow down, so it's like you're kind of half hitting them. You don't quite stop your momentum entirely, but you do slow by about 50%. It's just kind of weird. But those minor annoyances aside, it is a blast boosting around, and you can get some crazy height off of your vertical booster, which makes navigating uneven planet surfaces much easier. And that leads me to tip number 1. Make sure to use your vertical and horizontal boosters either at the same time or one after another to get height and speed and to really motor around the planet. You really get going when you boost with both directions, so try that if you haven't already. Tip number 2, press X on controller to honk the horn. This isn't all that important other than it feels pretty fun to blare your horn while you're flying off the edge of a cliff. Which also brings me to tip number 3. There is no fall damage in the buggy, so you can fly off mountains with reckless abandon, and doing so feels pretty awesome. So at this point in my ride, I immediately started looking for POIs on the planet. The next thing I really wanted to figure out was how does navigation feel now that we have a buggy instead of just walking everywhere on foot. I am an immediate believer in how much better the REV-8 makes exploration feel. You move faster, it feels smoother, and it's also just a little bit more engaging being able to boost around versus just jumping and jetpacking. Once I arrived at my first POI, I realized it had been invaded by Varun zealots, but I was already basically parked on the roof of the outpost, at which point I realized that there was a weapon on my buggy. So I started firing. This brings me to tips 4 and 5. Tip number 4. When exploring, the buggy is your best friend to conserve ammo. Firstly, you have the onboard gun, but the buggy also does collision damage, so you can squash bad guys without having to fire around. It's kind of fun bouncing around on enemies like a vehicular Mario. Tip number 5. If you're using the gun on the REV-8, you can aim like any other weapon with the left trigger, but importantly, this causes a time slowdown for as long as your oxygen meter lasts. This gives you a nice advantage while fighting in the buggy, so use it to your advantage. So after I finished laying down and butt whooping on those Varun zealots, I decided to check out another biome. I dropped into the frozen north and immediately found this biome better for driving, as it was way more open with fewer rocks to get in the way, and it was going so great, Dang. That's my bad. Yep, I got stuck real bad. Tip number 6 is for when you get stuck in the buggy. If you find yourself unfortunately stuck, just switch to third-person driving mode and open your scanner with the left bumper if you're using controller. Find your ship and aim at it, and just like any other time, press A and the option to fast travel will present itself. Then just exit your ship once you've fast traveled, and your buggy will be right there with you by the ship landing spot. It's a pain if you were far away from your ship when you had to fast travel like I was, but it's a pretty easy fix otherwise. Finally, I was very interested to see if the borders of the map had expanded at all. I think roughly speaking, it's about 5 kilometers in any direction. So I wanted to see, now that the buggies were added, is this any bigger? Because obviously you can travel much faster. I hit a wall at about 5,000 meters from my ship, and your ship is the center of the map. So I believe that's about the same map size as before the update. I've never really tested the limits of any of those map tiles, and I was surprised at how long it actually took me to get 5,000 meters away. I'm actually just curious in general, if you play Starfield and enjoy it, or even if you don't like it, how often did you actually run into those walls? Because this was literally the first time I ever ran into one, and I had to go looking for it. I'm just curious if that's actually a problem for anyone else, because I just haven't really faced it. But I think a question a lot of people probably have is it worth coming back to Starfield just for this update? I am a self-proclaimed true fanboy of Starfield, but taking those glasses off, I think for the average player, if you've already played through the game, seen a lot of the POIs already, I'm not sure the buggy itself adds enough new to the game to come back to it just for that. But I think anyone who's had fun with the game, it's worth downloading it again and just messing around with the buggy. Even if it's just for 30 minutes or an hour, I think you'll have some fun with it. And if you are a player who's thinking about coming back, I think Shattered Space is the perfect time to return. Not that you can't start playing again now, I just think you won't find a lot has changed unless you only played at launch. The game does feel noticeably different since launch, so if you haven't played since then, I think now is a perfect time with the buggy. But if you played it more recently, beat the game, liked it, or were kind of lukewarm, or even loved it, I think if you feel like you're kind of done with it for now, it's better to wait for Shattered Space. I am genuinely so excited about the future of Starfield, and I love free editions like this, like the buggy. It feels great to explore with it. I think another really exciting thing about the buggy is that it was teased in the Shattered Space footage, where they also announced the buggy itself. And that does suggest to me that the buggy might be a big feature or a standout feature for the DLC. We know the DLC is taking place almost exclusively on this new world that's the home world of House Faroon, so it's really exciting to think about how the buggy might feature in that. And if we're only on one planet, we might have to cover further distances, so having the buggy feels pretty essential as well. Again, that is just speculation, but I find it interesting that the buggy was released so close to the Shattered Space reveal, and that the buggy was featured in the DLC footage. I think that's a little hint. And if you want more info on Shattered Space, quick little plug right here for our video where we cover everything we know so far about the DLC. Have you played around with the REV-8 yet? What do you think of it so far? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to chat about it. And of course, if you want more Starfield info, check out this playlist right here for all of the content we've created on Starfield so far on the channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm Dylan, this is Beep Boop Loot. We'll see you in the next one.